Yo, where them Catholics at? Man, what's the matter with these bishops?
And welcome back, everybody. It is the Catholic Convert Show. And of course, we made it all the way to the middle of the week. And we haven't managed to get kicked off the air yet, probably because people who matter don't watch or listen to us. So we've got that going for us. I'll tell you what, man. I joke all of the time, and there's plenty of times where you beat me to the punch, but I'm always ripping on your age. Well, yesterday I woke up and it felt like I might have gotten assaulted by an orangutan in my sleep because I felt like my right shoulder had been dislocated. So I spent the whole day just not able to, open doors or drive with my right hand on the steering wheel, and is just absolutely ridiculous. Can't figure out what's wrong with it. It feels weak. It hurts every single time I move it. And then it went away by this morning. Today I woke up and I've been limping the entire day because it feels like my left hip is suffering the same fate. So I have no idea what's going on. My wife's like, how did you hurt yourself? Because I spend time working outside. I'm either cleaning the pool or, cutting up some trees that are growing over the fence, things like that. And she's like, well, maybe you injured it doing any of these things. I'm like, no, because I didn't do them yesterday. All I did was sit here and write. And then I went to go pick up my kids from VBS, came back, had dinner, took my daughter back to the church for VBS. I just stayed there because there's no point in me driving back because I'd have to turn right around in my driveway by the time it's like a total 90 minutes, right? And I went to sleep and I woke up this morning and I'm like, oh, what did you do to injure yourself? I slept. That's the extent of what I did to injure myself. I went to sleep on a nice, comfortable bed. Woke up, got out of the bed, and almost fell to the floor. So I don't know what's going on, man. I don't like it. If this is what getting old feels like, I'm going to be dead by the time I'm your age because it's not working out.
Okay. Well, most people are dead by the time they reach my age.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. By the time I hit the triple digits, the tricentennial's going on, I'm done.
Yeah.
It's a horrible.
Yeah, I get the Methuselah gene.
How old was Methuselah when he died? Was it 940 something? It's something clearly like the oldest living person in the.
Was it Moses like 700 something?
Right. But Methuselah was the longest living person recorded in the Bible. I'm pretty sure.
I think so, yeah.
So, yeah, I'll tell you one thing. There's a couple of people I'm really glad don't live that long. Not trying to be hateful, but I'm just saying I'm really glad some people don't live that long. And honestly, if we look at the way people are today, you go, if I'm broken, dying, and I'm not even 40 yet, I hurt myself sleeping. I don't know how bad life would be if I made it all the way to 900. Like, what do you do?
I don't know. You just think about how many times Methuselah had to change doctors over the course of his lifetime.
Yeah. Updating all the patient files is probably a pain too, because they had to do it all by stone and chisel.
Exactly.
Data entry was a well-paying job back then. I'll tell you that. You also had to be the guy that lugged around all the files.
Oh, terrible.
Sure, he was jacked.
I would think so. He didn't complain getting out of bed in the morning.
Probably not. But, I mean, sure. Maybe he didn't have the same issues that we deal with.
No.
Yeah.
He didn't take his kids to VBS.
didn't take his kids to VBS and have to drive 3 hours a day. That's for sure. You know, but back then it was like, hey, it's that way. See you in a couple of weeks. Go. You know, problem was solved.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm joking about feeling like I'm dying, even though I try to eat right, I try to work out, train, exercise, whatever you want to call it. And you know, it's just a natural fact of life. The joints get a little weaker every year that goes along. But I do try to maintain really healthy habits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Outside of, obviously, I'm going to have a smoke, whether it's a cigar, my pipe, a cigarette. I'm going to drink some margaritas. I'm going to do all those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure I'm in denial about how those are affecting my health. But I'm going to keep that illusion until I no longer can. If I do get cancer, I'm just going to go be Walter White. It's not going to be an issue.
Oh, there you go.
But one thing that got me thinking, you know, we always talk about, you know, the Holy Habits app at the end of every show, almost at the end of every show. And we talk about how important it is to, you know, develop these holy habits to strengthen your sacramental life.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me thinking, as important as it is to cultivate healthy, holy, good habits, but we'll just put healthy and holy into the category of good, right?
Mm-hmm.
As important as it is to try to cultivate good habits, I don't think there's nearly enough emphasis put on how much importance lies in the act of culling negative habits.
Mm-hmm.
Because I look at it like this. Good habits are like crops, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want them to grow, you got to feed them, you got to nurture them, you got to water them, you got to take care of them. And it requires a lot of attention to maintain good habits. But if you look at your bad habits, they're like weeds. You don't have to do anything at all. They just keep coming up. And you have to constantly be paying attention to pluck them out of the garden. Because apparently I'm sticking with this analogy. You have to constantly pluck them out of the garden and trim them back and do everything you can to keep them from growing to where they start choking out the crops. And when I thought of that, I went, oh yeah, duh, concupiscence. We have a very sinful nature. We have a proclivity to sin. Thanks, Eve. Appreciate it. And Adam, shame on you. You should have led your wife better. But anyway, not trying to live in the past. But no, everything that's, I think that's the challenge of trying to be a good Catholic. Because the negative, the bad, the evil, the unholy habits that we are prededicated to commit, you don't have to do anything at all except ignore them and they'll just take over. Versus it requires effort a thousandfold to do the right thing, to do the holy thing, to do the good thing, whether that's, hey, I'm going to say no to this apple that was rolled in bacon fat and fried in cheese dust, or that's a very common American meal for all you foreigners out here.
I had it for breakfast.
Yeah. It's very common here. But it's the same as I'm not going to engage in like consuming negative media, for example. Right. And I don't want to sound like a Puritan. Like, I'm obviously not going to be like, John Lithgow in Footloose, which is a great movie where dancing leads to, it's a great movie. You know, dancing leads to sinning. okay, it can, you know, it's like, you know, spooning leads to forking, and if you're spooning and forking with the wrong people, you could get knifed. You know,
Oh boy.
especially if there's already a pair.
Well, you know,
But that's not
dancing.
what I'm saying.
Dancing did lead to sin in Dirty Dancing.
Yes, you know, but you'll have the time of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Don't put Jeffy in a corner.
Yeah. This is going swell. No. But no, I mean, I'm not trying to say like, you know, you got to be a Puritan, but I have noticed that I started getting really uncomfortable. And I don't mean like, oh, like some kind of negative Nancy Karen. That's inappropriate. Nothing like that. If I were to, you know, you see some partial nudity, which is almost, or even full nudity, which is almost impossible to avoid, even in regular like pharmaceutical commercials at this point, right?
Yeah.
But mostly when you like, I spend a lot of time in the car, which I complain about all the time, and I you know, I love listening to music, and I have a really hard time enjoying modern music just because it sucks. Okay, it sucks. So I'm listening to things like mostly like 60s gold or 70s radio on Sirius XM. And, you know, sometimes I'll switch it over to some 80s because who doesn't love some Van Halen Panama? But when I hear some of the music that I listen to, even for like, I don't know, the early 2000s, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, mid 90s, you hear some of the lyrics. And when you're a kid, you're just like, this sounds awesome. I'm the angsty teenager, da-da-da-da-da. You know, Kurt Cobain sucks. But you're like, you don't pay attention to that stuff. But I've found, and again, I this is not like a Puritan approach. I've found I feel worse just like overall, right? Like I feel like, I'm not even like as jovial or joyous or happy in general. If I'm listening to music that is more centered around that angsty, emotional, everything is dark and the world sucks kind of thing that was very popular and still is in most music from like, I don't know, like the mid to early 90s all the way to today. And when today it just like dives deep into straight depravity. It's like audible pornography at this point on a lot of the music. But I found it's harder for me to stay in the right frame of mind and focus on like, hey, I'm going to pray a rosary every day. I'm going to go to make sure I never miss adoration on my hourly, you know, once a week, even though I've got co-adorers that can take the hour, so the sacrament's not alone, or, you know, pretty much just anything. I'm going to make sure I pray today. I'm going to make sure I thank God for everything that he's giving me today. You know, I'm not going to just be that only pray when I need something guy, right? Oh, please help me get through this, Lord. I find it much harder to stay in that frame of mind if I'm listening to that kind of stuff, if I'm consuming past a certain parental rating level, I guess would be an easy graph to envision here, of secular media. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm never going to be that guy that just watches nothing but EWTN and Formed and listens to the Catholic channel 24 hours a day. No, like the Catholic Guy show with Leno and Tyler's awesome. Katie McGrady's awesome. I don't remember his last. Gus Lloyd, he's awesome on the Broken Halo show.
Yeah,
but I can't listen to that all day. I'm still going to watch like my favorite movies and my shows and stuff like that. But it did get me thinking this morning that I had to do absolutely nothing to get out of bed and just hurt because it's kind of like this inevitability of time where it just happens, right? I don't remember ever doing that in my 20s. But now I'm sitting here, almost 40 years old, and everything hurts, and I didn't have to do anything to accomplish it. It's very similar to those bad habits creep in when you don't do anything to avoid the bad habits. If you're not constantly being vigilant, and it can get exhausting. It can be very tiring because like we grow a bunch of our own food. It sucks having to go out there and pluck the weeds out in the heat and do all that maintenance. So internally, it's just as bad because it involves a lot of self-accountability. It involves a lot of self-discipline and sometimes self-chastising. You got to beat yourself up a little bit in order to no, don't do that, dummy. And when I look, everything's a temptation because we live in this world where everything's microwavable, it's automatic, it's instant. And so we get real used to being able to just get results right away. And I think it's got to be one of the most frustrating aspects of trying to fix yourself, become better, work on your holiness when it requires so much effort. Because why can't this just be easy? I mean, Christ didn't seem to have to try very hard. It just came natural to the guy. What's he got that I don't? Where
do I start to lose?
Something. I don't know. Maybe my mom, wasn't that, great compared to his. I don't know what it is. But no, seriously. Okay, we talked, from your experience yesterday and actually the day before that, we were talking about your experiences as a Catholic. So I got to ask, how often do you still find yourself just slipping into the bad habit of not keeping track of your bad habits?
Hourly?
I don't want details, by the way.
No, I know. All the time.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know what you do.
No, but it's.
I'm not your priest. Don't confess to me.
Here's what everyone's experience is probably going to be different. That let's say I have 5 bad habits that I developed over the course of my early adulthood. And I worked on all 5 of them. 1 or 2 of them have thankfully over the years disappeared. Kind of like the way that somebody who smoked for a very long time and tried quitting cold turkey 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times. And then for whatever reason, on the 5th time, that was it. I mean, I think about I can use my dad as an example of that because my dad being growing up in the age that he grew up, every single person smoked. And
it was actually required. They gave you a pack on your 15th birthday.
I think they did. But, so he, a number of times when we were kids, he gave up smoking. And I can think about it. And I know a couple of times it lasted a week or 2. A couple of times it lasted like 18 months or maybe even 2 years. And then he'd be back to smoking. And then I was probably in my late teens or so. And one year as a summer project, we were going to repaint several rooms in a house, one of them being the living room. Well, my dad, like most guys of that era, had their chair, kind of like Archie Bunker did, Nobody else sits in that chair.
My dad, my chair.
You have your chair?
Yes,
I never had my chair. But my dad had, his chair. And so he would sit there in the evening, you're watching TV, you're reading the newspaper. And since he smoked, obviously he was smoking. So we start painting the living room. And the ceilings were, I guess, sort of white or off-white, eggshell or something. And as we get half of it done, you see the half that's towards where his chair is. It looked like one of those black and white cookies
all over the ceiling.
Oh my goodness. It was crazy. And my dad looked up there and he says, a lot of that crap is in my lungs. And he had a couple of packs left at the time. He used to buy, what is it? There's 10 packs in a box or whatever in a carton. He just went and he threw them out, and that was it. Never smoked again, and that's what it did for him. So my point for
that's why I never
that,
smoke in the house.
Oh, I mean, I've actually never even smoked. It just seemed because my dad did that thing. That's another thing. I was like 12 years old or something like that, maybe 11, and we're sitting on the front porch together. And I had just cut the grass, and he was smoking, and he said, "You're really curious about what this is like, aren't you?" I said, "No, not really." He said, "Yeah, you are. You've been wondering about what it's like smoking." I said, "No, Dad, I really haven't." He said, "Here, try it." And so I did, even though I had no curiosity about it whatsoever. It was disgusting. It was like I was putting my mouth on a freaking, yeah, right? It was like I was putting my mouth on a tailpipe of a Plymouth or something, I thought. And I'm like, and he said, "See, you'll never smoke after this." And I said, "I was probably never going to smoke anyway." It just seemed so gross. But he was doing the dad thing, and he, in his mind, that was the way to handle it. But no, I've never smoked. But my dad gave it up after that, just seeing the ceiling and what was probably his lungs look like. So I have a few vices that I developed early on that have disappeared in that same way, where I tried 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times to give them up. It lasted for a week, a month, a year, whatever, and I'd fall back into it. But now, like I said, 2 or 3 of them have gone the way of the dinosaur. But there's still a couple of things that I fall into every now and then. And I hope that eventually those last couple of things are going to fade away too, but I don't know that for sure. So I go long periods of time without falling into those traps. I pray about it, and I just keep trying. And when I fall into it, I don't say, you're a bum, you're a sinner, you're never going to get this right. You pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you move on. But you do things in order to try to avoid falling into that again. Because the other danger is people who will say, "Well, I'm going to keep falling into this trap, so what the hell? I'll just give in." If your problem is, say, for instance, you think that you drink a little too much, and then you try to cut it back, and it doesn't work. So you're like, well, God's just going to have to be okay with the fact that I get drunk every Saturday night. Well, that's not really the way to look at it. You still have to try to work on that. And so that's what I do. I work on those things. And I'd like to think, and the thing is that I look back and I see that I've had success in certain areas. So that's my inspiration. I figure, okay, if I was capable of knocking out 3 of my 5 vices, I should be able to knock out the other 2 as well. And that's what I try to do. But listen, I'm human. You're human. Am I going to get to the point where there's a certain point that from that day forward up until I die, I'm going to remain sinless? I don't see that happening, because you think about it, the vast majority of our sins, they're not planned or anything. Like, it's not like, okay, like if you're drinking too much on Saturday nights, you start looking forward to that on Wednesday night. Hey, a couple more days and I'm going to get looped. It's not like that. Most of the things we do, it's because we're trying to get home on time and somebody cuts us off in traffic. And the next thing you know, you're flipping a bird and cursing them up and down and things like that. The things that happen kind of spur the moment. So those are a little bit more difficult to combat, really, but you work on them nonetheless. I mean, my dad was good. My dad, I will tell you this, since I brought him up already, none of this guy who grew up, through the Depression and all that nonsense. His father died in a coal mining accident when my dad was a year and a half old. My dad started working picking beans when he was 7. Went into the Navy on a day after he graduated high school during World War II, was on a destroyer, and was a smoker, as we've already established. And you would think, okay, this is a guy who probably, among other things, curses up a storm. I will tell you this. I never, ever once heard my father curse. Not even once. And in fact, I remember being like 8 or 9 years old and being in the back seat of the car, and we ran up to the grocery store to get something or whatever, and and some guy cut us off and then started cursing at my dad. And I could see my dad's face turn red, and he was about to let loose on this guy. But something in his head, I guess he caught a glimpse of me in the rearview mirror or whatever. It's like, no, my son's in the back seat. My child is in the back seat. And he wound up doing one of those like Yosemite Sam kind of things. Friggin' second saccatash, kind of things. He wasn't going to curse. He had to get something out, but he was not going to curse in front of his son. And I was, even at that young age, I was pretty darn impressed by that. The fact that my father did not curse in front of me, and to the very, last breath he took, never heard him. Same thing with my mom, but that's a whole, it's a little easier for women, I would assume. I don't know. But I'm just saying, so I know that there's an example of somebody who, I'm sure when he was younger, I'm sure when he was in the Navy, he probably hurled a few epithets out there. He probably said a few nasty things. I'm sure growing up where he grew up and getting beat up on his way to school every couple of days, he said a few choice words, but he wasn't going to do it in front of the kids, So there's where I draw part of my inspiration is this guy can do it. He set the example. I can do it as well. So that's how I work to try to put some of my, my bad habits and stuff behind me. And again, sometimes you fall. Sometimes you not get knocked down, but you do what you can.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the whole point that I'm making here. But the point is you have to keep getting up, because if you go, I'm tired of paying attention to this thing, maybe it'll just go away on its own. It never really does. Right? It doesn't just disappear. Like,
no.
Look, your dad saw that stain on the ceiling and went, okay, these are gone, and he throws them out. Like within like 5 hours, he was like, man, I need one.
Oh yeah.
Every time he went to work, every time he was around his pals, oh yeah, I want one. But no. So he had to constantly keep a check on it. And it's kind of one of the things that we talk about, with the whole act of contrition, to avoid the near occasions of sin.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be vigilant in that stuff, man. Because it's easy. It's the same thing for me when I was like trying to cut weight for a fight. Okay, I want to cut weight because I want to fight this guy. And if I fight somebody my weight, he's going to be 2.5 feet taller than me. So I really don't want to do that. So I want to fight somebody that, I can at least look in the eye without standing on a chair. It's going to be odds a little better in my favor if I don't have to fight some lanky banana arm dude. But
it's tough.
Like, my wife's over here. My wife's Hispanic, and my wife's a great cook. So she's like, hey, I got menudo, I got sopapillas, I got chile relleno. So I'm like, I'll have white rice and bland chicken.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, this sucks. But you do have to pay attention to those things, and like, and it required me to do the extra effort thing. Is all right. It's Sunday. I'm gonna load the entire oven up with chicken breasts and chicken thighs, and I'm gonna cook a big old thing of rice. And I had to spend some money on Tupperware, and I've got everything labeled and marked by day and meal in the fridge. My wife loved that, by the way. And I had to go through all that effort just to avoid, you know what? Domino's sounds pretty good right now. You know what? Yeah. Domino's.
See, this is no, stop. Just stop right there, because this is a big problem. I mean, I think this is like a South Carolina issue or whatever.
No, it's a hunger issue.
No, I mean, no. Okay, because I live within a couple miles of. There's some people in Brooklyn or whatever might argue this. There's been a battle going on for 111 years. But I was in New York like for a lot of 2006. Ray's Pizza is better than whatever you're about to say. Oh, whoa. And see, this is, I'm done. I'll see you. No, you
And
go
just
to
like that, that's how you get rid of a geriatric.
that's how you get auditions open tomorrow. No, we got Papa's Pizza, we got Di Lorenzo's right down the street. Both of them started around 1912, 1913. Same, and you know, I mean, I know New York, they'll say, oh, it's in the water and everything when you're making the dough, blah blah blah. But
No, it's in the
I'm just
sewer
saying,
rats that are in the water.
but you got to be, once they swim around in there, get those, you know, juices flowing.
Yeah.
But
It just comes off the fur.
what the whole point is, if you live where I live, there is no such thing as Domino's or Papa John's or Pizza
I
Hut.
get that. I
It's
get
not-
that. We're not gonna
no.
look.
But
I'm taking the
you're
wheel
saying-
back,
but you-
and we're not going down. We're not going down the tangent to argue.
But nobody
about
ever
food.
craves Domino's. No, never.
When you're not eating any carbs, everything sounds delicious. Okay,
No, I'd eat a cardboard box before I'd eat Domino's.
you're like, yo,
And
let me
that's
get that
with-
loaf of
and that-
Wonder Bread. My mouth is watering. That's how it
Oh.
feels when you're not eating carbs for a month. All right, it's like I will eat that
Yeah, I
entire
know,
loaf of
I
Wonder
know, I
Bread.
get
I'm
it.
not even dipping it in water, which is the custom. Yeah, not doing
That is the custom.
right.
I was really jealous when I was growing up. All my friends had Wonder, those little balloons or whatever they were on the package, the red, blue, and yellow balloons. And I said, Mom, why can't we get that? My mom baked fresh bread every day, and here I am wanting Wonder Bread. I mean, what was wrong with me? But that's a completely different story.
I mean, there's a reason. You only get paid what you do here on this show. You know, I didn't go with the highest bidder.
No, you did not. The most economical.
Trying to save some money here. You know, qualifications were like, the bar's not that high.
How's that working out for you?
And Scott Hahn auditioned, and I'm like, you're might be overqualified for the job. But no, the point is I had to put in a lot of effort to not slip up.
Yes, I get it.
I hate you. I had to put in a lot of effort to not slip up. But then, of course, you've got, I know everybody goes, you shouldn't have to have a cheat day, or if you just watch calories, you don't need a cheat day and you can eat this. Like, okay, I was trying to cut like 16 pounds in 2 weeks. Calories and not eating hardly anything was like, yeah. All right. I know what I was doing. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I fluctuated between fights all the time because I tried to do the Mayweather thing and be like, oh, I'm just going to stay at fighting weight. No, because I look like I survived the Holocaust. Not doing that either. But, you know, if I did slip up and be like, you know what, it's okay that I slipped up. I cannot make a habit of slipping up.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like if, you know, you've got your phone, you know, your phone's probably one of the most important pieces of personal property you have in today's day and age. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens? You drop it. And that's why we have cases on them. This is the freaking titanium iPhone, and I've still got a case on it, right? You drop it, the screen breaks. So what happens if you drop your phone and the screen doesn't break? You pick it up and you put it in your pocket. You're like, whew, close call. And then you don't look down and go, oh, I didn't break. And you start stomping on the thing to make sure it breaks. That's what happens when you slip up and you go, well, like you said, I'm never going to get this right. Might as well just go with it. God loves me for who I am. You know, that's the equivalent of you drop your phone, it didn't break, and shucks, it didn't break. Let me stomp on it because I'm probably just going to drop it again sometime and it'll break then anyway.
Exactly.
You know, that's what it boils down to. But yeah, I mean, there's no matter how hard I try to stay healthy, no matter how hard you try to stay healthy, time is going to keep moving forward. I'm going to wake up with weird aches and pains and like just indescribable. Like, I have no idea how I got this bruise. You know, that kind of thing's going to happen. That's my wife right now.
There.
She's like, how did I get a bruise on the bottom of my foot? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my wife. But it's the same thing with any bad habits you have.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going to occur naturally without you having to do anything. And you can't be like, well, I just give completely up, because you're only human, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if the studies are true, but I did read some study probably 2-3 years ago that said that your willpower is actually finite. You have a limited amount of willpower, which is why most people struggle with sticking to like a crash diet or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. It's like they tried to make these huge changes too quick, and it just wasn't sustainable. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm pretty close with a couple of friends who were very successful therapists, and you know, they might know. I don't know, but you can't just say, like you said, I'm probably going to screw it up anyway. I'm probably going to drop this phone again and just break it. You know, I'll get a new one because I was probably going to break it anyway. Yeah, you can't do it like that, but you do have to. And I know you don't beat yourself up because, you know, you can't take a beating at your age, but you do have to learn to be harder on yourself about the things that you can control and the things you can change, but learn to stop being so hard on yourself about the things you can't. What you cannot change is your concupiscence. You cannot change your human nature and proclivity to sin. You can't change that.
Sure.
You can change when you are in that moment and you consciously recognize this is not something I should be doing. Or better, when you're in that moment and you're conscious of this usually leads to that thing that I shouldn't be doing. I'm not going to do this. You can control getting better at that.
Yeah.
You know, be harder on yourself about the things that you can control, but not so hard that you're even chastising yourself. And, you know, you're like that monk guy in the Da Vinci Code beating himself in the back with a cat of nine tails about something you've got zero control over.
Yeah.
You know, I think we talked about this before on one of the shows, you know, about the whole Catholic guilt thing. Like Catholic guilt is an awesome tool to use, but not be used by. Right?
Yeah.
It's very similar to crossing that line of, well, I go to mass and I pray and I try to lead my family to Christ because I'm terrified of going to hell. When that should not be the motivation.
Yeah.
I mean, that should not be the motivation at all to do any of those things. Like, if the only reason you're a Catholic is because you're afraid of going to hell, I'll say at least you're Catholic, but you got to flip that around, because everything about the Catholic Church always gets framed negatively, right? Even when they're positive things, because people see the rules of, you know, God's law and the church's teaching as somewhat limiting. They're like, well, you're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. Priests being celibate is a very good example of that. So they don't even let priests get married. Okay, that's one way to frame it. And yes, for all you, well, actually, I know if you convert and you're already married and you were already a priest, you can be a married priest. Shut up.
Wait, my priest is married and he didn't convert.
These are different, right? Shut up. What I'm talking about is that they see that in the Roman Rite, Mr. Specificity over here. Yeah. Or like how the kids say it, I'm going to be more Pacific.
Yes, be more Pacific.
Yeah. But they go, well, they don't allow priests to get married. They require them to be celibate and not have families. They frame it negatively when you could turn it around and frame it as a priest, you're able to take on a spiritual fatherly role of an entire parish.
Mm-hmm.
And because you're not bogged down with corporeal limits of a family that you will naturally be drawn to give priority to, you can
Mm-hmm.
focus on the people of God's church as Christ did his church.
Yeah.
It's a completely different way of framing it. It's not, well, they don't even let them get married. No, it's they get to live a life where their fatherly role is that of taking care of the flock of the people of Christ's church, in the same way that Christ was a celibate man, that Christ did not take a wife, and Christ ministered and was a father and a Lord to his people. It's a very positive way of framing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's the same way as,
Sure is.
I completely screwed up. I did this thing that I wasn't supposed to do. It's a stupid habit. Dumb me. You're smacking yourself. You're okay. Yes, do that, because you deserve to do that when you do the same thing that you shouldn't be doing over and over and over again. Right? And you're not doing anything. You're taking any efforts to stop doing that. But when you fall, because no one falls on purpose unless you're, trying to throw the game because Vegas got money because Vegas has money the other way. That's when you take the dive. I wouldn't know anything about that, just because I
No, not as a boxer.
Yeah. I would know anything about that. But when you fall, the positive way to frame that is, as I fall, I learn, and as I learn, God forgives, because it's not, oh, you screwed up, go to hell. It's not what it is.
Yeah.
And while I'm struggling, and we talked about this yesterday, I'm struggling to stop falling. As we suffer, we join that suffering with Christ, and we use it as a pathway to become more holy ourselves.
Yeah.
I keep screwing up and it's killing me. I'm suffering for this. Then join that suffering with Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Easier way to reframe it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
no,
you can
have to be like Ed, though, and just absolutely perfect in every way, because he doesn't ever beat himself up about anything.
No, I don't. Also what I find helps a lot is, you have to find substitutions for these behaviors you're trying to correct or to negate. And typically a good one is prayer. So if you feel yourself drawn towards doing that one or two things that you shouldn't be doing, open up the Bible, sit down with your rosary, do something like that, because something is going to fill that void. It's going to be something good, or it's going to be something bad. You can't leave
a vacuum.
You can't. It's kind of, I think I look at it kind of like when people are trying to quit smoking, for instance, and what, they tell you, oh, you need to have something in your mouth. So people will walk around with lollipops or gum or something. And when they feel like the urge to have a cigarette, they'll pop open that lollipop or whatever, And so they're able to get through that really rough beginning, especially when you're just jonesing big time for that cigarette. It's the same thing. When you're really jonesing for that bad behavior, fill that void that's been left there with prayer, or, I mean, listen, and it doesn't have to be, or it could be something, some totally innocuous sort of an activity. Go out and work in your garden, or go wash your car, or something until you can get past that feeling of urgency to do whatever it was you're trying not to do. But I find that prayer is a good one, because not only are you not doing that bad thing, but you're really seriously putting that time to good use, because there's never a bad time to pray. But yeah, you definitely have to, you can't leave that vacuum there, because because what are you going to do if you're sitting if you're going to say, man, no, I want to go get a beer. I want to go get a beer. And the way you're handling it is by sitting on the couch saying to yourself, I really want a beer. Eventually you're going to go get that beer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Eventually it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. You're going to, I mean, I've done it. We've all done it where you just give in to whatever it is you're trying to, and then you beat yourself up that you did that. So, you know, you've got to find something to fill that time with, and fill it with something good and something that's going to be helpful to you. But
yeah, that's what I found. You know, I got these 0 calorie like juice sickle things, and well, that wasn't 0. It was like 10 calories in the thing, and I know those labels are always like 50% off, so I just assumed it was 20. So anytime I started craving something, I was like, that's it. I'm eating a popsicle. That, you know, and it worked. I replaced that craving to go like, hey, I'm going to go get a cheeseburger because we make some really good double bacon chili cheeseburgers with jalapeno and sour cream. And oh, it's so good. Yeah, but that's like 2,300 calories that I shouldn't be taking in one day. But yeah, you gotta find something to replace it. But no, that's where my mind went today, all because I woke up with my hip feeling like I got hit by a truck. Oh, that said, Ed, what'd you bring from your creepy basement today, brother?
I brought something very interesting. You know, it's perhaps not the most fascinating thing ever brought up from the basement, but it's still kind of cool because and what I said, so many things that I have because they are not only a part of the history of the church, but they happen to be beautiful because I love how so many elements of our faith, you know, on a daily basis are just pretty. Like when I'll bring on an icon or something like that. I mean, there's nothing more beautiful than an icon of the Blessed Mother, something like that. So there's so much art that is a part of church history and stuff. So what I brought today was this is a man, that glare kills me. But this is a marriage certificate from, and you can see the wedding at Cana there in the center, perhaps. But this is a marriage certificate from 1904. And
that is beautiful. I want mine. Why doesn't mine look like that? You muted yourself. You muted yourself. You muted your. There you go.
Oh, you know, I was moving the microphone and I put my thumb on it. So not only is it, you know, 120 years old because it's from 1904. It's from a couple that got married in a church in Cincinnati, Ohio, but you can't really see it. But it's all written in the Czech language because they were in
nice.
a neighborhood of people from the Czech Republic, and you know, and they probably attended a church where the mass was said in the Czech language. They probably didn't speak a lick of English, but because they were recent folks to come here. But in any case, I just love this because the artwork is stunning on it. You know, it's just incredible. So there you go. So it's a marriage certificate for a young Catholic couple from 1904. I hope they had a very long, healthy, and happy life together because I'm assuming being married 120 years ago, unless they're my age, they are probably no longer.
I hope they're no. I was going to say I hope they're still together.
You know what? Yeah, exactly. Up there, still together. You know, which is pretty incredible. But again, like I said, it's just
I guess Cincinnati's like over there for you.
Wait, where right now? Cincinnati's that way. So
yeah, it's over there.
It's over there. But no, I mean, yeah. But I hope they're together in heaven. Although there's a whole big thing about that. But anyway, but I hope they did have a little
bad theology. That's like my grandma got
I
her
know,
angel
well,
wings. No, she didn't.
I know. As
Son.
soon as I
No,
started
she
saying
didn't, Tim.
it, as soon as I started saying it, I. But anyway, but no, I hope that they are both in heaven, and I hope that they had a wonderful, glorious, and
They
incredible
occasionally
run
brush
together.
up against each other at mass.
Exactly, something to that. Like, hey, bumping, one cloud going this way, a cloud going that way. Hey, I know you, that kind of thing. But
that does beg a question that I don't know
no.
exactly how to articulate it.
Yeah.
This is probably going to sound really stupid, but hey, I'm okay with sounding stupid. It's made me a lot of money for many years. When we get married in the church, we become one flesh.
Yeah.
Obviously, we do not become one soul.
Sure.
Right? But we do become one flesh. We are as one.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe it's probably over here in the catechism, some reference to it, or there's probably some obscure pastoral letter or document out of the Vatican, what the exact theology is for a husband and a wife, both Catholic, both dying, both becoming saints in heaven. What's the exact theology around? Like, are they up there just side by side all the time worshiping Christ, or are they just mixed in with all the rest of them?
It's a great question.
You don't know, do you?
This is like, well, and
this is very inside.
I do actually know the answer.
Okay, because like it's very inside Catholic baseball, right?
Oh, is it? Yes,
So
no, but I will tell you this.
Explain it to me.
Here's the beautiful thing about this is that describing heaven using the words that are available to me is a bit of an impossibility.
I get that,
and you get that part, but understand that what I think when people ask me, well, is this going to be in heaven? Is that going to be in heaven? Am I going to see so and so in heaven? Is my dog Rover going to be in heaven? All this stuff.
No, he will not. Your dog is not going to be in heaven.
Okay, well, that one's an easy one, but
your dog is
what
not,
I say.
The movie lied to you.
Not all dogs go to heaven, but
no.
What I say to them is, you're all these questions are moot, and I will tell you why. These questions are moot because what you will experience the ultimate joy
and glory of being in union with God.
Yeah, and so all the you're
thinking the other stuff matters. But
you're thinking of it
from a very secular point of view, which I'm not a secularist at all.
Yeah.
What it does is it reminds me of how you have to start with you pull one thread on a sweater and it just keeps unraveling and it keeps unraveling. And my question was like 5% serious. Okay.
Yeah.
The rest of it is leaning towards the idea that I've got St. Thomas Aquinas on my wall over here, right?
Yeah.
Probably one of the greatest intellectuals to ever be Catholic, right? Like, if you want to learn theology, learn it from St. Thomas Aquinas, okay? But of the thousands upon thousands of saints and people throughout church history that have gone down these deep, unraveling dive rabbit holes into the mystery of faith and Catholic theology as a whole, to only spend, 60, 70, 80 years doing it and never reach the end of the thread because it just keeps going and it keeps going and it keeps going and it can never be fully comprehended and never be fully understood or discovered. You know,
Yeah.
and you've got 5 people on 5 different threads. They work for 80 years and they never end up even crossing except for, you know, on the rare occasion. But it never comes into something that is fully understood by us. But every new discovery or every insight that is made in all those theological and philosophical dives into the Catholic faith, you never find anything that isn't true.
True. But you know, and it's funny, but we're being serious about this. So because if you talk about like, well, what about, you know, our marriage and, you know, you live a long life. Well, how about someone who is married for 40 years, their spouse dies and then they remarry, you know? So, and then
Awkward
that one
moments
dies. And what happens when they're in heaven?
It was an
Are they
awkward
married to
moment
both
at
of
the
them
gate.
or whatever.
But yeah, that was an awkward moment. St. Peter's over there going, hold up.
It was, but but seriously, but that's the thing. But what we don't have, what we think of as spouses in heaven, we have what would be referred to almost as holy relationships, you know. And I mean, Jesus himself said that in heaven you will neither marry nor be given in marriage, but rather you'll live as the angels do. So yeah,
but
so I mean
that's
the beauty of it all. I mean,
when you have these questions, it's important to remember that, just like I was saying about bad habits, you can't look that way and expect to understand it from the perspective that we only have here on earth. That's a terrible habit.
Exactly.
And that leads to terrible theology, because it's just like, my grandma got her angel wings when she died. I'm sorry, your grandma did not get angel wings. She did not. Grandma's not an angel in heaven. If she's in heaven, she's a saint. Well, with that theology, maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to judge the lady. Okay? Because, you know, judge not lest ye be judged. I'm not going to finish that verse because I want to act Protestant. But no.
Yeah.
Like I said, the question about, well, what, you know, we become one flesh here, but what about them? It's 5% serious. It's 95% making the point that we cannot fall into that habit of trying to understand God through human lenses, because we don't have our priorities straight down here. And it's it falls into, we are unfortunately forever plagued with concupiscence to look at things from outside God's lens. And that's just the way that we're going to have to be. Thanks again, Adam, Eve. You know, you guys had that perfect bond, and you decided fruit.
You blew it.
You decided fruit was a good trade-off. Apples aren't even that.
I could
good
see
unless you roll them in
if it was like a
bacon grease
Snickers
and then
bar
deep fry
or
them
something
in
like
cheese
that.
dust.
But you know what I'm saying? Though, if it was like a Butterfinger or something, but an apple. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
I'm not going to give all this up for an apple.
Right. At least
of ice cream, something. Cheeseburger. Come on, you know, exactly. Medium well, you know. Get it. Or not medium well, just medium. Bacon. Slab of pork roll on there.
Oh yeah. Right. As long as the pizza doesn't come from Jersey, it's good.
Hey, no. Oh boy.
I'll give it. I'll give you that. You guys have great sandwiches up there. You know, with the tzatziki on there. You guys are doing all right.
I get the tzatziki. When I go to Boardwalk, I go right over and get the tzatziki sandwich every time. The marinara, sausage and peppers. You can't beat it.
There you go. But all right. We rambled for an hour. We somehow made it through all of this. So I guess we'll wrap it up. And we'll see you tomorrow. Friday, even having a show is tentative. We may not do a show this Friday because I'm going to be, usually around the time we're sitting here talking, running around on a field, throwing water balloons and super soakering a bunch of small children at my parish. So that's that. But for everybody who enjoys it, we love you. We can't wait to see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And later.
Yep. God bless everybody.